My opinion is that it won't be more than a flash in the pan. You know, as kind of Kory was just bringing up, like liquidity might chase the yield. You know, they call that mercenary capital. It'll come and then it'll leave. Tron just doesn't offer anything compelling in the long term, in my opinion. I've long time felt that, you know, while the fees and the speed of Ethereum certainly are a problem, they haven't yet like outweighed the strong network effects that Ethereum has as far as the concentration of assets, developer mindshare, composability, et cetera. And so I don't see this being any different. If a low fee, high TPS chain does take market share from Ethereum, which I think is completely possible, I don't think it will be any of like yesterday's news. I don't think it will be EOS or Tron. I think it will be something new. I think it will be Polkadot or Near or Solana, something like that. So that, you know, is my opinion. I think that there's money to be made in chasing things on Tron. I think that Justin Sun is obviously a good marketer. And I think Tron has taken an approach of basically being like this like holding company, VC kind of mega corporation where they just will throw money at different ideas and see what might attract people. And I think they have some weight behind that, but I don't expect anyone to seriously stay on Just Swap for trading assets because there's not any desirable assets on Tron long term.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, sure. I think let's move to. We have like 2 more questions left, I guess. One of them is a little bit longer, so let me read it. Tether is highly centralized and quite opaque. That worries me, and I know I'm not alone in that. At the other end of the scale, DAI is the most crypto-native stablecoin, but things like Compound, where DAI can be effectively be minted, has introduced a huge ecosystem risks. How can this be hedged against at a systemic level? That's the first question.
So there's 2 parts to the question. One is regarding Tether, the other is regarding DAI and Compound, right? I guess we'll tackle that in 2 steps. I mean, does someone want to tackle the DAI issue and now tackle the Tether issue, or either one? I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll talk about Tether because everyone likes talking about Tether. So here's the thing, you know, Tether, even though they have done quite a lot of controversial thing, at the end of the day, it seems like right now the market still has a lot of confidence in Tether, not just regular people, but also, you know, the large institutional traders like the whales, the funds, etc. So if you actually talk to those traders, these institutional traders, they would tell you that the Bitfinex and Tether team is actually amazing, and you know they'd have really personal relationship with these guys, and they offer like, you know, superior customer service, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So, you know, on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff going on with the NYAG, as you can read in the news. Then that makes you question, you know, how sustainable is, you know, this Tether business model. Well, on one hand, you know, the NYAG is definitely US based. Tether is not based in the US anymore. I don't think they have any assets in the US anymore. You know, they're not currently taking US clients anymore. So it would be quite difficult for regulators in the US to try to go after Tether like somehow, right? And if they're really going to go after somebody, there's a lot of exchanges, from regulated exchanges to non-regulated exchanges that, you know, service US customers that integrate with Tether. You know, those are the ones that are supporting the Tether infrastructure. Why don't you go after those guys, right? So, and then the fact that, you know, Tether has publicly said, not denying it, they publicly said that only part of their reserve is backed by USD. You know, a lot of it is like in notes and other type of assets, right? So despite them saying that, right, they're still keeping their promise of one-to-one redemption. Maybe not to everyone, but definitely to the whales. The whales, the ones that are supporting this market, right? Crypto is still a pretty small market compared to like the stock market or forex or gold market, for example. And as long as the whale have faith in the system, there's no bank run. If there's no bank run, then Tether continues to do what it do, and there continues to be market confidence in them. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. That's just the way that the market, it seems like, has been evolving. And for what it's worth, Tether is still growing, and we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen eventually. And that's my take on Tether. It's very, there's still market confidence in them. All the major institutional players seems like they're still playing with Tether. Whether or not, major institutions that are more mainstream, like Wall Street institution, will play with Tether in the future, that's a debate to be had, right? We have USDC and all the alternatives that are also growing really fast right now. So we will see what happens when crypto becomes more mainstream. Now I'll let somebody else take the DAI or compound question.
What was the question about DAI and compound?
So it was more about like systematic risk. So I can repeat that part again. So it says like, okay, Tether is like highly centralized and quite opaque. That worries me, and I'm not alone in that. At the other end of the scale, DAI is the most crypto native stablecoin. But things like compound, where DAI can be effectively be minted, has introduced a huge ecosystem risks. How can this be hedged against at a systemic level?
Gotcha. I don't necessarily understand what they mean by DAI can be minted. Maybe they mean DAI as being levered and could unwind on these, compound loans.
Yeah,
I mean,
what I assumed, though I wasn't like too clear.
I generally share. It plays into this, but I generally share Kory's view on Tether. Tether used to keep me up at night in 2017 for a long time. 2018 part of it, and then we started arbing Tether and making a lot of money. But I don't worry about Tether. The systematic risk is not what it used to be. I think if and when Tether fails, if the United States can assert their, kind of regulatory grip on it, I think that things will fill the gap. I think we have all of the collateralized FDIC stablecoins to fill the gap, because I don't think Wall Street will touch Tether, but they'll touch USDC and Pax or Stably or anything else in that category. And we see continuing, updates from the OCC on that as we speak. So I think that will fill that gap. Now on the other gap, the reason people don't really care about Tether not being one-to-one backed, even though this supposedly goes against all of crypto's ideals, is two things. One is liquidity, and liquidity is king. And then two is regulatory arbitrage. People want low friction stable coins that are globally usable. So Tether is moving enormous amounts of money in and out of China and Russia, and there is no better way, to do that in the crypto world now. Now, if Tether fails at some point, I see that being the only time that DAI or something like it will ever rise to the level of adoption that people hope it will in the short term. That's going to be the driving demand, right? For a low regulation, low KYC stablecoin is to fill the gap that Tether has left. So, that I think drives the demand for something like DAI.
Yeah, to add on to your point, there's a lot of countries all over the world with capital control. I've worked with a lot of people in all these markets. They're always looking for a solution. I tell you, there's really no better solution than using Tether to get capital outside of these firewalls right now. Be it China, be it Russia, even my native country in Vietnam, right? What's the best way to get a massive amount of capital out without having to use the bank and violating, capital control regulation? Why, you take your fiat and you buy Tether and you send the Tether out. That's the fastest, easiest way to do it right now. So, for better or for worse, I think a lot of the future, products and services, some of it definitely the mainstream Wall Street regulated ones are gonna touch only USDC and Paxos and TUSD and maybe Stably and all that, but there's always going to be a market for Tether, right? There's always going to be. That's not going to go away anytime soon. And maybe one day Tether will come out with some privacy upgrade. Holy cow. Right, that's gonna change the game and everything, so we'll see.
I was just going to say, I think that there's likely to be some stable coin, at least in the EU. We're talking about some legislation, not in 2021 probably, but by 2022, there's definitely going to be some laws about who can mint stable coins. I think you will be allowed to mint them, but I think there are going to be laws about how you can mint them, and then you're going to have to prove reserves and stuff like that, or you're going to have to prove outcomes or something. You're not going to. I doubt that Tether's scheme of being 70% collateralized is going to fly for another 24 months, in my opinion. Okay, and I do think that that's going to cause. There will be at some point some black swan risk in a lot of these. And things like Curve, right? Where there's Tether in the pool and stuff. And if this thing does occur, it'll occur like all bad news. It occurs quickly, right? So, you're gonna wake up one day and it's gonna be, the justice has raided the offices of Bitfinex in the British Virgin Islands in close. And I don't know who's going to be in power in the U.S. in terms of, but Trump doesn't like this stuff. He tried to shut down Bitcoin. So I mean, in his own clumsy way, right? But he's like, what about this Bitcoin thing? Can we shut it down? No, why not? Okay, that was the.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think the U.S. is gonna. Well, I don't think at the federal level, for a while. It's
Not
just.
for a while, but I do think we've got to look. I think we're also the other problem is Tether right now is like a $10 billion market cap, right? At some point, this stuff becomes like it has some actual, real serious impact on the overall economy, right? At $1 billion, it's that doesn't matter, right? At $100 billion, it's going to start mattering if it's
Yeah, but I don't think it's a death blow. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen. I think it will happen, right? But if this happened 3 years ago, it could have been devastating. If it happens now, we could see a 50% price drop in assets for a week, a month,
right.
whatever. I think we bounce back from it very quickly compared to previously.
I agree. It's not like the end of crypto by any means, right?
Right.
I would actually say that I'm sorry.
Sorry, this is early. Just jumping in. There's been some interesting news that recently happened. I put in the chat. The OCC just announced that banks can.
Right.
The SEC as well.
Yeah, I mean, unless Tether goes to 0% back because they run off with the money somewhere, right? The majority of the whales and trade desks, et cetera, still can redeem from the treasury. They'll move it to something else, even if they're moving it at 70 cents on the dollar.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say here. Look at your bank account in the U.S. How much of that is in reserve? Before COVID, it was 10% reserve ratio. Now it's what? It's like almost zero, So your bank, when you put money into it, they're already lending it out. The reserve ratio is close to zero right now. So Tether reserve ratio is like what, 70-something%. So you can argue that Tether is actually a little bit better than the bank. They just don't have FDIC insurance, right? So what matters to us at Stably, transparency, trust, 100% collateral, all that matters, and what U.S. regulated stablecoin should have. But for players like Tether, they don't need to play by that rule. What they only need to promise is the ability for one-to-one redemption. It don't matter they put their reserve in Bitcoin, Ether, commodity trade financing, or Forex trading or whatever the heck, right? As long as they can maintain the trust with all these whales that this token is redeemed one-to-one for a US dollar, and you can redeem it anytime, no problem, and you can trust that we will continue to do that. As long as that trust is there, Tether stay floating at $1. And that's I guess that's how markets operates, right? It's based on trust.
Right. I mean, there can be up to a 5% swing on Tether during very rough times, but it's still pretty good.
Exactly. Sway.
I think eventually the market's going to diverge into two sets, for better or for worse, right? There's going to be regulated stablecoins and even whitelisting, blacklisting among exchanges with fiat on-ramps. And then there's going to be either unregulated Tether or fully decentralized stablecoins. I think as far as DAI goes, what we need to see is we need to see more innovation in stablecoins. Like I think there's a lot of people who would like to improve on Maker's design, right? And some of that is how governance is done. Some of that is the ability of, you know, the inherent limitations of Ethereum and how that affects liquidations and auctions and things like that, right? So all those things can be and are being improved upon. And I think there will always be a demand for decentralized stable coins, but they're definitely in the shadows of Tether right now as far as just low friction and regulatory arbitrage.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I agreed on that too. I think one question I had for Fred was regarding like minting of stable coins in the US. Regarding like the laws you mentioned, is that gonna apply for something like DAI, or are we talking about like the pegged ones?
Well, I think it definitely is going to apply to asset-backed stablecoins, right? I mean, there's like in this, and it's also not just federal level; it's state level, right? So, you know, Texas already has something that says, you know, you need a money transmission license in Texas to mint a stablecoin, right? So, you know, and I don't know, I haven't read the law, but you know, but I'm guessing if you're DAI and you're operating in Texas, you need to get a license, you know, guessing, you know.
But that's where we all know those laws just don't make sense from a practical standpoint. They cannot be enforced, right? That's what we're seeing with the rise. That's what we're seeing with the rise of DeFi, you know, and people issuing their own assets. That's one of the reasons that Uniswap has exploded, is because it's permissionless market creation, right? There's so many problems with Uniswap as far as, you know, the simplicity of an AMM versus an order book and the impermanent loss and this and that, and, you know, add on to that gas fees, et cetera. It doesn't matter because Uniswap's product market fit is that it's permissionless market creation and permissionless trading. People want to mint assets. They want to trade them. And that's why DeFi will always have an advantage over centralized and regulated entities. And it's impossible at the global scale to stop that. So what does it mean to not...
We haven't really touched on that theme, but I think that's really the key theme here, right? Which is, you know, I can create FredCoin, I can put it on an AMM with $10,000, and all of a sudden I can start selling FredCoin, and as people buy them, the price is going to go up. Some people can flip them. I got a market, right? And you know, that's a whole lot more low friction than doing a 2017 ICO, right? And it's a whole lot cheaper than listing it on a centralized exchange, even a bad one, right?
Right, and certainly versus doing a Reg CF or Reg A offering, obviously, that's night and day.
Right. So I think that the fact that you've got these automated DEXs now, that's the killer. That was the killer breakthrough to me. And I don't even think we've even seen how that's playing out. I think this is just act 1 of 10, you know. But because whether it's some new coin, or whether it's, you know, an NFT, whether it's a ticket to my party, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, you know, I just see that these automated exchanges are going to be, or decentralized exchanges, permissionless exchanges, right? With very simple user interfaces, unlike IDEX, right? Like, or Ether Delta, right? Which, like, I mean, honestly, they existed, but like, you need a PhD to understand Ether Delta. Like, no normal human beings can figure that one out, you know? And then you have to go check, you have to put your stuff there, you have to go check, see if it's sold. Oh, you have to then you got to move it back. And it's like, you know, I just think that the simplicity trumps everything. If you've got something that's super simple, permissionless, easy to use, I don't care if there's slippage, I don't care if there's poor liquidity, I don't care any of those things, right? I think that was the killer thing. And the fact that there was this model where you encourage liquidity, and as you add liquidity, you become a part owner of the thing. This is great. Fundamental breakthrough. And I think that we are yet to see all the impact of that. And I do think that is going to exist on a number of blockchains, right? Obviously, I'm doing it with Proton, but I've talked to Polkadot 2 days ago, right? And everybody's sort of thinking about this. Everybody's sort of thinking about these AMMs, and Avalanche is like positioning itself as a blockchain for DeFi. So everybody's going to have their DeFi stuff. So, is Tron interesting? I don't think Tron's that interesting as a platform personally, but they got a lot of users. And if you're into gambling, it's pretty interesting. If you want to play dice games, it's currently the best place to play, dice games. And there's a certain number of people who want to do those, and I think even that you've tapped 0.1% of the market, right? There's going to be much more of this stuff. So I think the Uniswap market it's a fundamental breakthrough what they did. I think more so than even the lending thing, because I think the pawn shops, there's a limit to how much pawn shopping people want to do. It's unlimited how many people want to hit these markets.
Uncollateral lending, that's the big thing.
I would push back against this kind of criticism of collateral. I guess it's not ideal from capital efficiency, but a mortgage is collateralized lending. You said that you wouldn't call something that has collateral to be lending, but collateral is not an uncommon thing. Yes, these things are over collateralized.
I'm just saying the demand for crypto loans that is backed by crypto. I'm not sure how enormous that is.
It's being used for leverage right now. But where do you think that the average person's dollars that goes into Bank of America, where is that going? It's being lent out to hedge funds. It's being lent out in repo markets. It's being lent out in capital markets. It's really the same thing. 99% of people's earnings off of savings and checking accounts is going out for leverage and financial, deployment. So it's not really any different. I think what's game changing is it's permissionless, real time, programmatic, and global, right? And so now instead of me having to give up 5 of my 6% to the bank in Wall Street, I'm getting to keep 6% of it, and 2% of it's going to somebody in another country that I've never met, and everybody's winning. So I think Compound was a huge breakthrough, and the fact that anyone could composably tap into that, and like you said, I can create payroll but add interest, that's huge to me. So I think
I don't want to finish it at all. I'm just saying I'm not sure that there's this enormous. I'm sure there are a ton of people who want to borrow on leverage, right? And I think if once we get to when we have really BitMEX and FTX type decentralized 100 to 1, I'm not super familiar with synthetics, but I know you can do some pretty high leverage on synthetics as well, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, we're planning it.
Yeah, it kind of got put on hold. They were moving towards a perpetual swaps model, but they haven't to this point.
So, but I think that this notion of borrowing on leverage and with stops, automatic stops, and everything else. There's probably a lot of market there. I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, because BitMEX is enormous, right? So if you take BitMEX and you could turn it into a sort of DeFi version of BitMEX, where the liquidity pool owners of BitMEX are getting all those rewards, probably would be pretty powerful, actually.
Yeah, and that's the goal of all these dexes, right? And as far as the leverage and the perps, Serum and Power Trade is one that's about to launch, where the token owns the insurance fund. So yeah, I agree. There's a lot of opportunity there. Lending and borrowing seems to me to have, maybe I'm wrong about this, a bigger global appeal to the average person than trading small markets for arbitrary tokens. But maybe not. People love to trade stocks and day trade and things like that too at the retail level.
I think they both go hand in hand. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really want to make, but I do think that I think that the breakthrough that enabled all this is these dexes, right? Because up until that really got solved, the AMMs, I just don't think you could build on this. You know, this would not be the same without that. And I just think we're gonna probably go up from here in terms of, you know, the only thing I can see that's stopping this whole thing right now really is, you know, the speeds of Ethereum. I mean, a lot of that will get fixed with, you know, level 2 and everything else, right? But overall, I feel like I'm pretty bullish on the trajectory of DeFi over the next 12 months. You know, I think it's gonna be pretty amazing.
I don't think there's any putting the genie back in the bottle.
No.
Yeah.
I got a hop here, guys. But I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Fred. I'll have like one more last question for you guys. It's regarding you know, SSI, self-sovereign identity. So especially like, you know, when it comes to like, you know, collaterals right now. I mean, like for someone, you know, who's in crypto and, you know, you're holding Ether or you're holding like BTC, yeah, like, you know, taking a collateral, I mean, providing that as a collateral, you know, to get maybe like stablecoin, you know, would make sense. But, you know, taking this like into a mainstream where, you know, an average person, you know, want to come in, borrow, do you guys feel like the fact that maybe like, you know, SSI, you know, going big and having this physical identity, you know, integrated into like this digital identity, do you think like it could lower the cost of, you know, having like big collateral, like maybe like, you know, under 100%, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's basically credit, right? If you have SSI for someone, you could effectively create a credit profile for them, whatever method that is that you choose to calculate that credit score. But lenders then, right, could look at that score as an indication of, you know, trustworthiness, of creditworthiness, and yeah, that would induce them to more likely to lend something to that borrower at less than, you know, 100% collateral or even zero collateral. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we'll move there inevitably. It's in a sense an opportunity to redo, you know, kind of the traditional credit system better potentially, right? Where we will have privacy preserving technologies that maybe allow this information to be analyzed but not leaked out and shared everywhere. I mean, there's literally 10,000 different companies that have my social security number and a full copy of my credit report. You can get it from any of the credit agencies for less than $1 a piece. It's, you know, it's just handed around. So we have opportunity to redo that system potentially, or social reputation, right? A lot of DAOs are going to start experimenting with this and kind of the credit union model. And I get invited by a friend and I have a reputation, and so I'm extended this much credit. This was actually the original. This was the original proposed design of Dharma, which is now, you know, more of a mobile neobank and savings thing. It was originally a protocol for third-party credit and debt systems, and there was the idea is that different, you know, underwriters would bring whatever models they wanted, whether they were just going to use FICO or they were going to develop a new system, right? And there'd be different marketplace for different people who were assigning credit with different risks, and then there was another, you know, layer of people who were viewing for defaults and liquidating, etc. This is what they were trying to do. I think they would realize they were a little too early there, but that was the original Dharma kind of product. If you read their white paper, it was trying to do exactly that. And I think a lot of people will still, you know, attempt this and try to push that forward. And inevitably, we will see under collateralized loans on the blockchain in 2021. I have no doubt.
Okay.
I think that's one of the next big push right there for people to start building their own credit profiles on the blockchain. Man, I'll get started on that like as soon as that comes out, you know?
Yeah. Who was it? I think was Bloom doing that too? I don't know what happened to Bloom, but there's definitely people trying. They will continue to try. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about over collateralized lending is there's not really any risk. There's a small technical risk that liquidations fail, but if you look at a system like BlockFi or whatever, it's very easy to sell someone's Bitcoin when their, you know, reserves are too low. And so, you know, the borrower is not really, the borrower and the lender aren't really at any risk systemically. So it's not ideal because it's not capital efficient, but it works. So, you know, from there we'll improve.
Okay.
uncollateralized lending to reputable borrowers through the system of like SSI. I mean, that's a yield, reputable borrowers that I would love to like, put my money, like lend them money and earn stable yield from them. Like I would sought out all the highest most credit worthy borrowers, right? And I'm sure there should be a platform for that where all the most credit worthy borrowers congregate, and then all the lenders can go there and seek the high yield, and the market will work itself out.
Okay, yeah, I think that pretty much makes sense, and yeah, I can't wait for that too. You can build, your credit, and next time you go somewhere else, you can use that. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think thank you guys. This was like really amazing and helpful, and I really appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you guys have anything, let me know. Thank you, Kory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toma, for attending. Alrighty, bye.